All right, so I've been pretty interested in automation. I think that software engineers should be able to scale themselves infinitely with hardware and programmable hardware essentially by the software that they write. And so I've been collecting this list of automation tools. Huginn seems to be the big deal, so the general purpose self-hosted Zapier type solution, but it's written in Ruby and the deployment instructions are kind of funky, old, and if anything went wrong, I would not know how to debug it. And it seemed like the requirements, especially for hardware, seem pretty high. So that's what led me to look around for JavaScript alternatives because I'm a JS guy. N8N is another newer initiative, but the one that really stuck out to me was Node-RED. So we're going to talk about Node-RED. I would recommend watching the intro on the video. It shows how to set up a very nice Twitter flow in only 5 minutes. So you can see how you set up like a visual programming tool with relatively little, basically no code. So that's a really nice way to do your own automation of workflows. And it's all in JavaScript, which I think is a better long-term bet for myself. I also think it's very easy to get started. So here's my sort of demo session, and we're gonna actually make this happen. I just want to show you how easy it is. So here's an empty folder, right? Um, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use yarn init -y just to set up a simple package JSON, and then I'm gonna yarn add node-red. And that's a single package. Obviously, the package has a bunch of dependencies because we're talking about Node. But without any config, you can actually run your Node-RED right off the box, which is very nice. So that gives us this little basic thing over here. It seems like it's stored my my flow in local storage because I actually tried to delete this stuff, but let's actually delete this so that I can introduce you nicely for Node-RED. So like a very basic flow, you can go through the tutorial, and I guess I'm just sort of talking through this tutorial because the tutorial was not exactly the smoothest to go through. It's all text, and yeah, I just want to make it easy because I thought it was very nice, and I thought it was worth sharing and processing for myself. So here I have a common. There's several different nodes. I don't know all of them yet, but they seem like they have some very nice logical operators. But the common nodes are the ones that you're gonna have to focus on. Inject is for either manual injection. I think you can hover over it. You can manual trigger of a flow, or you can trigger them regularly. So basically a cron job. And then the debug is just logging stuff out into the Node-RED terminal. And we can create a simple connection. They call this a wire, just by clicking and dragging. And that is essentially it. We can deploy as well as view the debug messages list. So this only shows up if I have that debug node over here. So let me clear this. Those are my previous attempts. And now when I click this, it's gonna run every single time I click, right? And it's gonna log out whatever comes out from this event source. If I want to, I can modify this to trigger every second. Yeah, why not? And I'll deploy again. And now it's going to log every second. It's fantastic. This is a Unix timestamp, not super useful. So what I'm going to do is filter for a function. And the function is going to take a message. I actually forgot what this message should be. Message.payload. That's right. So it just has a global called that. And I'm just gonna name this toString. The naming is optional, but obviously it's a nice to have. So now this just takes message.payload, which is that number, calls new date on it, and then it calls date.toString and then returns it. Very simple. And I actually recommend arranging your nodes vertically so that you can actually slot things in very easily. So now if I redeploy, I should be able to see the new messages translated to a node string. So it's very nice, and I guess very nice success. It's just so easy to get started. You can export the flow, you know, and so you can serialize and deserialize your flow. Where is it? Here in import, which is very nice to have. And to me, this seems a lot more approachable than Huginn. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's just JavaScript native, and I know that I could go in and maintain it. It also seems a lot lighter. Basically, it ships on a Raspberry Pi. So node red Raspberry Pi. And you would have trouble running Huginn on a Raspberry Pi because that is a Rails app. So yeah, this seems like a pretty good thing to explore. I even like what I saw about HTTP requests. So you can actually start web scraping. So Node-RED is marketed as an Internet of Things type of tool. I think that is a very bad framing of it. I think the guy who created it works at IBM, so you know, that's the world to him. But for me, it's more about no code and running personal automations. So that's the frame to which I approach this tool. Okay, so we're gonna try this second flow. So we're gonna be done with this first flow. Let me just turn this off. I guess I'm just gonna go none and then redeploy. Cool. I'm gonna delete this, and so we're gonna have a timestamp again. This is gonna trigger a HTTP request. And this HTTP request is gonna go fetch a CSV file. Doesn't really matter, but we're just gonna take their demo sample. You can add some authentication strings if you want, which is a very, very nice, very common thing to want to have. The HTTP request node then plugs into a CSV node. So the CSV helps to process, I guess the CSV node helps to process CSVs that come in. So CSV over here, I'm going to attach the CSV to the debug flow, and we can see this happen. We can see this work. I'm going to tell it that the first row contains column names. So let's see this in action, and I can manually trigger it. And here's the payload, right? We've just sort of mapped out our programming. So here's the payload, and we can actually do simple transforms again with that toString function. Or I think there's an actual, is it called transform? I think it's called template. Yeah. All right. So let's try this template thing, and you can see what the template does. So it injects. You have this payload variable, and you can do whatever you like with it. So let us say something. I'm not sure what I want to say. Okay. So I'll say an earthquake, so this is an earthquake data set. Quake happened in payload.place, right? I can just say, like, I guess this is using mustache templates, which you can search the syntax for. Payload a magnitude, whatever earthquake happened in blah, blah, blah. So I need to redeploy, and that's what screwed me up earlier. So now it says a magnitude 5 earthquake happened in 250 KIC. All right, so the final thing I wanted to show you was how easy it is to set up a dedicated page for it. So let's just say something like an HTTP in, and we'll say, we'll call this Quake, right? And that can be a trigger into our HTTP request as well. So we have this automated trigger, which we basically have turned off. I've just left it there just so I can manually click things to debug. And then instead of a debug payload, I can also say an HTTP response and click and wire it up to that. And so I can say, for example, with this, yeah, I don't have to say anything, I think. Huh. All right, so if I deploy this, what that gets me is that I can take this server that I have over here and append that endpoint that I selected, and get this result. Obviously, I can add templating with HTML and CSS and all that, but this is a very good start. You can do a lot of automation with this, and you can access this on your phone, and it is basically no code. Like anything that is commodity, you can import you have to import a bunch of flows if you wanna do like Twitter OAuth dApps and all that kind of thing. But I foresee myself using this, so I thought I should make a video. All right, cheers, bye.